Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenos días. Les
Hello,
damos
good
la
morning. Have a great day. We welcome you and we greet you to this last day of the top level dialogues. And today is our closure ceremony. Precisely after this panel, we're going to be thank you for joining us. So, after this panel, I just want to make this brief announcement. We're going to sign off an agreement, a symbolic sign off on an agreement with the Andes Healthcare Agency, and our general secretary will make the closure announcements. Thank you for your patience. Thank you to all the panel members of Financial Sustainability. We will start in a few minutes. I acknowledge the hard work or the word of the Actuarial Commission that's led by Luis Martinez. He's representing the Social Security authorities from Canada, and another VP that's part of his commission is with us too. Mr. Eduardo da Silva has joined us. Thank you for this effort, the effort for that led you to join us at this panel. Mr. David Rasu, he's the general director of Afore 21. He's part of our members, or his entity is part of our members. And in a few minutes, Ms. Luz Angela Acuña is going to be moderating the panel. So she will present the rest of the panel members. And on behalf of the General Secretary, I thank you for your availability to be part of the panel. And without further ado, we're going to begin. So thank you very much, Ms. Luz. Thank you, Maria Teresa. Thank you, Council, for making it possible, for going through the effort to celebrate this conference for the Inter-American Conference on Social Security. These panels enable us to share knowledge with our membership and the general public. So we work with a network of stakeholders that are interested on strengthening Social Security for America. Today we have a panel of experts from Panama, Brazil, Geneva, Mexico, and other economies. So this is a top level panel. So I'll present our two moderators with me. The president of the Actuary Commission has joined us. His name is Luis Martinez. He has a degree in actuarial sciences. He has other accreditations in risk administration. Well, our council just said that he is a president of the Social Security Commission on Social Security. And from Brazil, we have Da Silva Pereira. He's coordinating the stats department of the authorities in Social Security and the Ministry of Social Security in Brazil. He has a degree in economics. He has a master's in Social Security Administration, and he's a VP of the American Commission of Actuarial Services and Social Security. I open the floor for our moderators. So thank you all very much for joining us via Zoom and other platforms and digital content. Thank you so much.
Licenciado, no lo escuchamos bien, se está cortando
Sir, we can't hear a word. Not a word, sir. Your voice is simply not being streamed.
A ver, ahí un poquito más de volumen, quizá.
A little, if you increase the volume, maybe we can. So I'm going to have to probably speak a bit higher. On behalf of the American Commission of Actuarial Services, and we thank the General Secretary of the Inter-American Conference for celebrating this top-level dialogues. We're going to be discussing the future of Social Security, and we've been discussing these matters during the past 5 days. So we've discussed relevant subjects for all. Today, we have a panel in which we have the presence of prestigious authorities of Social Security, and the IES representatives have also joined us. The Uruguayan representatives are also part of the panel, COMSAR, and a body called Afore 21 from Mexico City. A financial sustainability of a pension scheme is a great challenge. The countries of America face challenges, and we have to discuss the long-term coverage of Social Security benefits. We have to make sure that our citizens live a dignified life amidst a condition of risk. When they retire, the question that I pose is, and the question that calls us to be part of this panel is, what can we do? to achieve what we must. Climate change is an issue. There's other challenges, contingencies. We're just past the pandemic. So this has led us to use new technologies in the late with the workforce. So we're facing challenges and we're trying to, immediately find solutions in this future. We thank the panel members who have joined this panel so we can continue working. I salute the vice president who has also joined me today. And I thank Eduardo da Silva Pereira, vice president of the American Commission of Financing and Budgeting. I open the floor for our first panel member.
Muito obrigado, Luiz. Estão me ouvindo? Bem?
Thank you so much, Luis. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. I hope you can.
A primeira
Oh, well, thank you so much, Luis. The first presentation of the day
ele é atuário de
is going to be about AdCam. And we're going to listen to Mr. Fayat Andrekan. He's a member of the International Association of Charging Business Risk Analysts, or ESA, and he's also working for the healthcare authorities in Canada. He has a degree in business administration thanks to the United Kingdom's University. Mr. Khan also has been working as a professional for different authorities on the field of Social Security. In September 2023, he was appointed as a technical expert or examiner of technical activities in Social Security. He has 20 years of experience in the labor force with insurance entities, financial institution, Social Security benefit authorities. Not only has he worked in his country, but in Trinidad and Tobago, where there's many actuarial services being offered, and he's been also observing different operations. He's been a professor of actuarial sciences in different universities, and he's been part of different international summits in which these subjects are discussed. Mr. Khan has postgrad studies, and he's highly qualified. He's a professional and has domain or authority over the subject of sustainability about the systems of Social Security. Thank you, sir, for being part of this panel. The floor is yours, Mr. Khan.
Thank you, Luis and Eduardo, for that lovely introduction. And thanks also to the CIS for organizing this important high-level discussion. So I will be speaking a bit today about financially sustainable, effective, and inclusive social protection policies and programs. So you all would have heard the introduction. My name is Fayad Khan. I am a technical specialist in Social Security at the ISA, and I'm speaking to you now from Geneva, where we are 7 hours ahead. I also coordinate the Technical Commission on Actuarial Studies at the ISA, so a similar role to what Louise holds at the CIS. I really just give a quick overview of the presentation, right? So I'm going to, just 1 second, I'm getting some. Right. So I will be giving an overview of the ISA very quickly, and then discussing current and emerging challenges that we are seeing across the world in all of our ISA members. I also want to give some good case studies on how members are addressing these challenges. So it will be some practical knowledge to take away. I'll give some final conclusions and then refer briefly to some references and links to other related knowledge. So just very briefly, the ISA is an organization that is part of the ILO, or International Labour Organization. It was founded in 1927, and it has been given the mission to promote social security globally through relevant knowledge, networks, and offering services to all of its members. Who are the members of ISA? Well, the membership includes social security institutions, government departments, and other institutions representing key functions in social security, such as actuarial functions, investment, contribution collections, etc. So we have representatives from 162 countries around the world, and within those countries, there are 330 member institutions. I mentioned that I coordinate the Actuarial Commission. We also have 12 others, so 13 technical commissions in total in the organization, right? And these include subjects such as IC, information technology, leadership and management, contribution collection, investments, etc. So in terms of the work of the ISSA has topical priorities for each triennium. So every 3 years, the ISSA establishes some high-level priorities to focus their work on. This triennium, we are focusing on transforming and innovating management and service delivery. We are focusing on protecting and supporting people during changing life course, social security coverage for a diverse workforce, and of course, social security supporting resilience and sustainability. Cross-cutting considerations are, of course, financial sustainability. So every single priority that ESA is focusing on must be underlined with some form of financial sustainability consideration. So looking at our membership and trying to distill the main challenges faced by everyone, number one on the list is, of course, the aging population. So how do we go about providing adequate benefits in the context of an aging population? And this is very important. I use the word adequate benefits here. Now, in terms of the aging population, we are seeing persons living longer and having longer retirement. This is coupled, of course, with declining fertility rates, where women are having fewer children. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, for example, in Africa, but in most cases, there is a declining fertility rate, resulting in more people exiting the labor force and fewer people entering. So this results in a shrinking workforce, coupled with rising healthcare costs and long-term care. So all of these are challenges of an aging population, which I'm sure everyone on this Zoom call would be fully aware of. Additional challenges include providing inadequate coverage, where you have non-standard workers and informal workers not being properly covered. And they are some of the most vulnerable groups that we need to provide social security for. We look at optimizing the investment of social security funds, and this applies to fully funded and partially funded systems. And in the realm of investments, there are also some new considerations with environmental, social, and governance considerations, these ESG type investments. Climate change is another emerging challenge where you have a need for some horizontal expansion. Specific programs need to be developed to deal with climate change. You have climate-related migration, and of course, changing healthcare needs as temperatures rise, as you move away from the equator. And you have a number of diseases that move further and further away from the equator. There's also an issue with public trust and political will. Our major stakeholders give some resistance to change, the public, and this highlights the need for education and building awareness in all our stakeholders. There's also a big thrust to process improvements of key processes, automating key processes, information technology solutions in contribution collection, addressing fraud, and a number of other areas that address efficiency in management, right? So I am an actuary and I could not help myself. I put some mathematics in this presentation, so I apologize. But I promise this is the only mathematics in the entire slide. So just very quickly, the annual cost of a pay-as-you-go system, and this is just a simplified relationship that can be expanded to other benefits as well. But for simplicity, the cost of a system can be written as the total expenditure over the total insured wages. The total expenditure can then be expanded to the number of pensioners by the average pension, and then you divide it by the total insured wages, which is your total contributors by your average insured wage, right? And then when we break out these ratios, it is also equivalent to your number of pensioners over contributors, which is your demographic ratio, multiplied by your average pension over your average insured wage, which is your replacement ratio. So quite simply, the cost of these systems is a function of your demographic ratio or the age of your population multiplied by your level of benefits or your replacement ratio, your level of benefits in these systems. And this is just an oversimplified example, right? I will come back to that soon. So in all of these solutions I'm going to propose today or look at today from our members, we'll see how they impact some aspect of this important relationship, this math. So in terms of the first challenge, population aging, we have seen where a number of countries have simply increased contribution rates. So going back to the equation, right, where the population is aging or the demographic ratio is increasing, we are seeing some countries responding by increasing contribution rates. So Belize, for example, raised contribution rates by 1.5% in April 2023. Costa Rica raised it by 0.67 points and an additional 0.67 points in 2029. Dominica increased by 0.5 points and an additional 1 percentage point by 2031. Ecuador by 1.6, and a number of other examples I have here. Turks and Caicos, 2 points gradually by 2024. So what I would like to highlight is that increasing contribution rates has been a solution, and more importantly, gradually increasing contribution rates has been a solution. So most of these measures have been gradual in nature. Secondly, we're looking at people responding by increasing retirement ages. So going back to my equation that I just showed here, if you increase the retirement age, that in the long run results in your number of pensioners decreasing, but also your number of contributors will go up or increase over time. So increasing the retirement age has a double impact on this important relationship. So it's very impactful, very important to look at retirement ages. So for example, in Uruguay, you see that beginning in 2030, they're going to start increasing the retirement age to reach 65 by 2040. In Aruba as well as Antigua and Barbuda, the retirement age is set to rise as part of adopted earlier reforms, gradually reaching age 65 by 2024 and 2025. And also a new retirement age was introduced in Brazil, age 65 for men and 62 for women, right? In addition to these two approaches, you have mixed approaches. So some countries have simultaneously adjusted contribution rates and increased their retirement ages. So we see this happening in Ireland and Sweden, for example, and a number of other countries. So Ireland has recently approved the state pension reform package. So this incentivizes deferred retirement. It increases the contributions rate as well, and it adopts a total contributions approach. Sweden recently implemented a retirement age change, raising the minimum retirement age for their NDC program and for their mandatory individual account pensions. And they also raised the age at which employment protection ends. So these help with extending the working life of people. Another approach has been to extend the work history. So some countries have implemented reforms to incentivize longer careers. right? So Austria, for example, implemented a pension reform that reinstates the early retirement penalty, and it creates an early start bonus for those who contributed starting at an earlier age. Cuba recently removed their maximum old age pension. So before it was capped at 45 years of employment, this limit was removed. So people can now earn more if they stay longer in the workforce. Brazil has modified its pension benefit formula and adjusted its incremental rate from 1% to 2% per year of contributions in excess of 15 years or 20 years for men and women. So in other words, in Brazil, anyone with more than 10 years of additional contributions will have a higher benefit under this new system, and it will be lower for those with fewer years. So Brazil has also put things in place to encourage persons to stay longer in their workforce. And one other approach has been complete structural and comprehensive reforms, as we have seen in Netherlands, where they implemented a big reform to their second pillar. They eliminated defined benefit schemes for occupational pension funds, and they replaced it with defined contribution schemes. France eliminated some special systems for employed persons, and they partially delayed the retirement age to 64 but in 2030. They also plan to increase the minimum contribution to 43 years, and this will happen in 2027, as opposed to when they originally planned 2035. So France has taken steps to make these changes 8 years before they originally intended. Some other approaches include improving the social security coverage. So we have seen where in the region, Argentina, Brazil, and then, well, you have Indonesia, and let's not forget Uruguay. They simplified their administrative procedures to enroll and pay contributions. So they've simplified the process to improve social security coverage. With respect to extending coverage, in Colombia, the BEPS program uses resources from municipal taxes to extend coverage to creative workers. For example, actors, artists, and musicians. And they usually operate in the informal economy and have low incomes with irregular employment. In the Caribbean as well, we have seen where Bahamas and Barbados had functional unemployment insurance, and most countries did not. But recently, we have seen the British Virgin Islands recently introducing this new coverage, and other islands such as Jamaica and Trinidad exploring unemployment insurance. So they are making steps to extending the coverage of these benefits. One last thing I'd like to touch on here is the extension of coverage to difficult to reach groups. We have some good examples in Romania, Guatemala, Chile, and Argentina. So Romania has brought domestic workers into the formal economy through a simplified system of contributions. And in Argentina, we've seen a subsidy coming into place, as well as a new regulatory framework in Mexico too. So these are some good examples. And we've also seen coverage extended to part-time workers in Guatemala and platform workers in Chile. So there has been some good work in the region with respect to reaching difficult groups, right? As it relates to the investments, so we have seen a growing need to optimize the investments for partially funded and fully funded social security funds. And some revised approaches have been seen in Costa Rica, Mexico, and Argentina, the province of Neuquén. They've all adopted strategies which include new investment regulations, changing methods of investments, a certification process for fund managements, and of course, they have started pursuing environmentally and socially responsible investments. So in the past, most funds would have focused on risk and return. Now there are some additional considerations with environmental and socially responsibility. Some funds have also taken steps to improve their risk management. For example, in Indonesia, they've put things in place to match their liability cash flows coming out of their actuarial reviews with the asset cash flows. So that asset liability management helps them improve their liquidity risk. We've seen some data management improvements, for example, in Oman, where they use enhanced data to boost their investment income and fund life. And of course, ESG, environmental, social, and governance, that implementation we have seen in the Republic of Korea and Japan. And all of these case studies, of course, are available. And I'll come to that later on where you can locate them. As it relates to strengthening contribution collection and preventing fraud, we have seen some good examples in the region. So with respect to employee verification, Mexico has put a system in place where employees receive reports on the contributions made by their employers, and it acts as a dissuasive and corrective measure to address under-declaration. So these employees help in compliance. They ensure that the contributions are correct, and they act as compliance officers for the social security system. In terms of the next bullet, facilitating processes. So Spain and France have tailored a portal to make it easier for domestic workers and self-employed to register and make payments. Now, ease of doing business is very important for compliance, especially with the self-employed and the informal workers. And this is because, take for example, a taxi driver. They will not want to stop working, go into a building and pay contributions. So innovative solutions need to happen to make it easy for these persons to contribute. Behavioral approaches, these have taken place in Indonesia. Quite simply, this is name and shame. So where employers have been not paying contributions or where they breach any compliance issues, in Indonesia, these people are named in a list for everyone in the public to see. So this is it's embarrassing, and it's a good behavioral approach to incentivize compliance. And of course, we've seen fraud detection in Argentina, France, Indonesia. A number of countries have put things in place to improve their detection capabilities. And this is done using interagency agreements, using predictive analysis, data analysis, and in some cases, artificial intelligence is being explored right now. And of course, one last way to strengthen compliance is by raising public awareness, like Singapore is doing, and a number of other countries are doing too, right? So advertising and making everyone aware. So I have gone over my time, but I have just 2 more slides. What I would like to say in conclusion is that social security systems are seeking to improve their scope, adequacy, and accessibility while treating with financial sustainability. and this is important. I'll say it again. Financial sustainability must be addressed while maintaining or improving the scope, the adequacy of benefits, and accessibility to the most vulnerable people in society. And of course, this is in the context of COVID-19, the pandemic, and the weak economic conditions that were prevalent. So that is the main conclusion. Two others. Systemic and parametric reforms of pension systems represent one important way in which you can address financial sustainability. And finally, new forms of work, such as digital platforms, generate challenges and opportunities for the sustainability of social security systems. And I highlight the word opportunities, right? So that brings me to the end of my scripted presentation. Just very briefly, all of the cases I referred to can be found on the ISSA website. The case studies, the guidelines, country profiles, and publications at www.issa.int. And that brings me to the end for real this time. And at this point, I will hand back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Maestro Khan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ken. Thank you so much for your participation, sir. Your presentation, sir, was great. I took my notes. I took my notes in correlation to your presentation. I took notes about the, retirement age, contribution fees, the incremental rates of payment, your mathematical formula, and what countries are doing at a global scale to mitigate and to improve, to mitigate challenges and to improve the challenges that we're facing at a global level in Social Security. I took note about the coverage and the protocols or paperwork to obtain the economic benefits or pensions that are offered in many economies. So, what's been said enables us to allocate the benefits to the beneficiaries faster. I know that there's difficulties and challenges, and if I literally translate this also is complex, but as a matter of when you mentioned your conclusions, what caught my attention was the bullet of reforms, the systems reforms, or the systematic process of reforms or amendments and the parameters of the pension schemes, which are very important to obtain the economic growth that makes this sustainable for countries post-pandemic, sir. So thank you once again for being part. And I'll take the opportunity or advantage of opportunity by congratulating people for joining us via the streaming and Zoom and other platforms. Thank you for following the broadcast of the Inter-American Conference. Now I'll present Marta Angelica Leon Alvarado. She has a PhD in financial science thanks to the University in Mexico Caltech of Monterrey. She has a fintech accreditation thanks to Chicago University. She's an expert on applied statistics through the Institute of Applied Mathematics and UNAM, the National Autonomous University. She has other accreditations in actuarial sciences and other fields. She is the financial VP at an authority called CONSAR. She has different accreditations, and she's an expert in public and private sectors and policies, finances, insurance, risk administration, and business intelligence. So the floor is yours. She's a professor of EGADE, that's another department of research and development at Monterrey, the Tech of Monterrey. Thank you, Marta Angelica León Alvarado.
Thank you so much, Luis. It's a great pleasure to greet you today. I thank CIS for the invitation they have forwarded me for this panel. I will like to share my screen with you in order to tell you in much more detail the specific case for Mexico. CAN has enabled us to explore some of the issues and things that we have been carrying on in our country. I will be telling you about the specific examples of how we have been taking care of topics on financial sustainability for retirement pension in Mexico. Here I want to tell you what has led us to think and try to take care of topics of financial sustainability for pension funds in Mexico. Here I am showing you a couple of graphs. To the right, you see the evolution of the population pyramid. We have incorporated three cuts on different years regarding how our population pyramid will be moving and how it has been moving since 1950 to 2024, and how we are expecting to be moving to 2070. This pyramid is about to be inverted. We will have a greater number of people on retirement. For 2070, those that would be in retirement age 65 and more will be 1 out of 5. That will be accounting for 21% of our population. The evolution in the lifespan on birth with it has increased throughout time and will be increasing for the forthcoming years. The distortions that you can see for year 2020 is due to the topics related to COVID. These distortions have been corrected, and what we have been remarking an increase in this lifespan. In addition of having more people on retirement, we will also see that people will be living a longer number of years on retirement. So we have to have a sustainable pension fund in Mexico. And that is our objective. And I will be talking to you about the challenges that we used to have in our pension system and how we have been tackling them. We have had reform in 1997 to one that will be a defined contribution. Challenges in 2020, there were little number of retirees that had retirement pensions. What we were seeing is 6.5% of their wages that was allocated for savings for retirement. Management costs were high. Commissions that we had observed in our system were above international standards. In the case of the few retirees that had a pension, there were only 24 out of 100 that reached that pension. We saw the very low replacement rates, and they were insufficient, a maximum of 30%. Right now, I will be covering each of these items specifically, showing you how we have strengthened our pension system. Overall, the three main strategies that have enabled us to address these financial topics. We are talking about a wise management of retirement funds. We have been improving our regulation as to establish appropriately the regimes that would apply to the pension fund in Mexico. We realized that we needed to modify things, and we had to modify the design of the strategy. So we went from a multi-fund system to a generational CIFORES, and I will give you more details later on in my presentation. That was one of the consideration that led us to have financial sustainability. We carried out a reform to the pension system in Mexico in the year 2020 to have a long-term planning, talking about sustainability. I will be showing you how we have been tackling each of those items that I showed you in the previous slide. We're seeing low replacement rates, low contributions. We will be seeing that in more detail, showing you how we have been tackling them. And Khan had also mentioned during his intervention, we think the retirement savings fund, we have incorporating social, environmental, and governance within investment funds that the administrators have today. This leads us to have preventive measures in place to manage non-financial risk as well. In another slide, I will be telling you about the different pillars that we have included in our regulation in order to allow us to incorporate ESG on the retirement fund. Wise management, as I have been telling you, that took place in the year 2019. It has been done in order to promote the design of a strategy on a long-term investment plan adapted to the profile of risk and the yielding of the workings throughout their life. In 2019, we moved from 4 multi-funds, and we have 3 generational C4s according to the year in which that worker was born. And this is how we created this generational C4s that replaced the multi-fund system that we had in the past. As you can see on the screen, we have 2 graphs, and we show the change from multi-fund to generation C4s. It is much more fluid, the investment and the savings of those workers. We can observe for the variable rates, alternatives, fibers, and merchandise. We go from a much more fluid investment for our workers. We will be celebrating 5 years since we have included this in SAR. The C40 of the workers that are closer to retirement goes to the basic pensions fund, including the savings of those workers that are 65 and plus. And then what we call seed workers that are lower from 25 years of age and that are just incorporated to the system, they will be those that were born from 1995 to 1999. So that is how we will be moving the global fund of those that are reaching the age of retirement, and then we will be creating a new generational C40 for those that are coming in according to their change. Every 5 years, we will be doing this transition, leading us, as I was telling you, to have a wiser management of investment and risk as well. Each manager, each C40 has to have this investment pathways according to the yielding and savings of the workers. That is regarding generational C40s. Now, we had a reform that took place in 2020. We were facing so many challenges about before that reform. We were considering the amount of weeks that they had to fulfill in order to be eligible to have a pension. So we had 1,250 weeks that they had to comply with. So we reduced the number of weeks that it became 1,000 that will be paid for until year 2031, allowing more people to have a pension because of the reduction on weeks. We have observed that from the total of the formalities for pensions that have been done, around 21% are for those people that, if we hadn't had that reform, would have not been eligible to have a pension. Other things that we have modified, do you remember that contributions were quite low? It accounted for 6.5% of the workers' wages. Well, we increased the contributions from the employers to a 15%. This increase will be reaching that 15% by year 2030. Workers will be having better pensions, and according to the increase in contribution is that the resources of retirement savings will be increased because we will have this increase in contributions. Right now, it is accounting for 20% of our GDP, and by 2030, this increase in contributions, resources will be in a double fold. They will be accounting up to 40% of the non-growth income. So this tells us that we can push forward the investment of those investments that will be accumulating within time. Well, the fact that workers will be having a better pensions. We used to have a social fee for workers that earn up to 43,000 pesos. With the reform, we have a higher fee for those that earn less. Those that earn from 11,700 pesos, they have a higher social fee for those that earn less. Another of the things that contributed to obtaining better pensions for workers are commissions. Commissions normally were higher than the international standard. It accounted for 0.922% in 2020 and 0.808% in 2021. Commissions for these years, these retirement funds agencies, will be 0.566%, and now the workers will have more resources in their saving retirement accounts. Regarding minimum pension, there was an increase, and we are readjusted according to the age of retirement, the wages perceived. Before the reform, we had a minimum pension that was 3,928 Mexican pesos, 235 American dollars, and this minimum pension comes to be 3,131 and 9,840 according to the age of retirement, the wages, and the amount of weeks that have been paid or contributed. These are the reforms that we did in year 2020 to what we had back in 1997. And well, these contributions will come will be increasing, and these weeks that have to be contributed with will also be reduced within time. We have preventive measures. Within the Saving Retirement Fund, we have considered other topics. Mexico, we are the financial regulator that has advanced the most, and the fund managers have really contributed to increase ESGs. The commitment that we have to have a financial ecosystem that will be sustainable, equitable, and inclusive has to do with the reforms that I just mentioned in the previous slide, and put at the center the workers. That is the objective that we want to include the ESG factors. This will help us to address environmental, social, and government, which are the most compelling challenges that we have. We're always thinking about what kind of pensions will they be getting, but what kind of future we will have when we reach our retirement day. ESG has been very important to include it in the retirement savings fund. In these investments have this responsibility of ESG. We will continue to be so. We have included some modifications in order to incorporate the last three pillars that I will be talking to you about shortly. But we first included the 5 pillars. The one is that the fund managers have to include within the investment and risk policies ESG factors. For us, it was very, very important because they have to consider on the side of the investment and on the risk side as well. They have to take into account ESG within corporate rights that they exert throughout their independent advisors. Another pillar that we have incorporated is not only that we incorporated ESG factors, but with the prospects and the brochures that they give to the workers, they have to explain how they are incorporated the ESG
respecto a estos temas. Y por supuesto también esto tiene que
so
venir.
we can teach the workers about these topics. Another of the pillars that took us a little bit more time to include, I am sorry, I think that I ran out of time. No, it was that we could not hear you for a while. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you again. Sorry. Well, I was telling you that another of the very important issues was training. Training is very important when we include ESG in our system. The fifth one is to ask the clerks on risk and investment to have the certifications on ESG. The three pillars, the three last pillars that we included was taxonomy. Taxonomy for Mexico was published March last year, and we are asking the fund administrators to incorporate the taxonomy and assess how the investments are being aligned to the different taxonomies, including the Mexican taxonomy. We are also asking them to adhere to the divulgation frames so they can do the necessary work to adhere to any kind of divulgation or a spread frame that is of their choosing. We are also asking them to have ESG policies and alternate instruments and ask managers how they are incorporating the ESG policies within their investments. And to conclude, this is not yet done. We still have some challenges to address. One will be the replacement rate. We have to increase it, leading us to the other topics. Individual accounts must be registered in such a way that the workers will be engaging more in the system, will be doing decision-making of the best afores according to commission and yielding, and the increase that we have foreseen for the forthcoming years. What we have to be working on is to have better offer of values and financial instruments. We are working on a reform to the stock exchange in Mexico, have everything that will be much more simplified, bringing a much easier way that retirement funds can have access to. And we need to see competitive advantages in the financial subjects as well as the quality of the service. Obviously, we have to include gender perspective in policies. In case of women, there are still some gaps that have to be closed regarding access to pension and wages, and we have to increase the policies with gender perspective, increase voluntary savings that will help us to promote more their savings and continue to consolidate the ESG criteria within the system. We have short, middle, and long-term goals on this topic, and we want to promote the ESG factors within the financial system and to continue to work in getting to know better the system and have better preventive and a better education as regulators, be more engaged and know better orafores and keep on doing them better. Thank you. That's all on my behalf.
Desculpem. Muito obrigado, doutora Leão Alvarado. Eu fiz algumas observações aqui da sua apresentação.
I want to thank you.
Muito interessante a reforma que foi implementada no México, especialmente na questão da redução da.
I want to thank you for your participation and thank you for giving us all the comments of reducing the number of weeks that you have to contribute and everything that has to do with the increase in contributions from employers. We need to guarantee the benefits at the same time that you can ensure the right assessment of these benefits. Now we will be moving forward. We see Madame Mariela. She is working as Director of Social Security for the Bank of Social Security in Uruguay. She's an accountant, and she has a degree, and she has done population studies in a university of her country, Uruguay. She has a master's degree in pension funds by the Alcalá University. Thank you so much, Madam Lasso, for joining us today. Well, it is a pleasure to be with me, and I will be sharing my presentation on the screen.
Un segundito, por favor, que tengo un problema.
Just a second, please. I have a technical issue. Good morning to all of you. I will be talking about financial sustainability that is very important in almost all countries because of the increase of population that we see for the future. Uruguay is concerned and has a tradition on social security. Therefore, it is presenting a passive coverage that almost reaching universally, very high expenses for universality that we are facing, as to the extent that generations increase in age, we have to have sustainability in the pension system. We have to assess what are the present benefits and future benefits as well, without putting at risk or our system. Actuarial system enable us to estimate on the demographic hypothesis the incomes and expenditures of our system. For the execution of this, we have to have exogenous variables that will be affecting the system, do hypotheses on the future behavior, mathematical models that will give us a ratio. In this presentation, I will be sharing with you first the objectives that are sought by this reform, the objectives that we have included in the reform, and the current actuarial considerations. Well, first of all, the fundamentals for this reform, demographic dynamic that is creating pressures on the benefits that are being defined. On defined benefits, issues are sustainability and sufficiency because active populations are lower that will be having to finance larger and older populations. The savings will have to be financing a longer number of years. Minimum age of retirement is not really hand in hand with the lifespan. It has been stable within time. Passive coverages have led us to changes in labor market of those workers from private sectors and low density of contribution and low wages, structural changes of technologies, and a labor context that is changing, heterogeneity that will be recording actuarial yieldings that are unequal and problems with the sustainability. The objectives of reform has to do to adapt the demographic dynamic system, ensure financial sustainability and stability, keep coverage and benefit levels, flexibility to an uncertain future labor context, and create conditions to face the challenges in health. Uruguay is a small country that's moving forward swiftly in its second demographic change. The increase of lifespan will be generating aging. The Public Ministry of Health has told us that the birth between 1996 to 2021 has fallen in 40%. Fecundity rate has moved forward to 2.47 to 1.60 children per women. Here we see fecundity rate. We see that in short term will keep on getting lower, but we want to estimate that by year 2050, that will be a 153 and 170. Regarding the lifespan at birth, keeps on increasing. Men reach 75 years in 2020, 7 years less than women, and it is being expected to 90, 91 years in a long run. The relevant lifespan is that to 60 years of age according to the sex.
So it can increase in 2029. The lifespan was 20 years, and we expect an incremental. Women Simultaneously, I mean, they go through the same time frame from 25 to 32 years. Given the evolution of the fertility rate at a global scale and the lifespan, we estimate that the demographics of the population in 100 years, it's going to be 20% less. So the total is 2,700,000 some thousand people. If we compare the pyramids of population by this year, by 2020 and 1995, that was the time frame in which we went through the other process of reform. We see the growth of our population. So we have this baseline, this bedrock. So there's an incline and decline. There's a decline and an incremental. So we see the stats. There's the group of our demographics that are 65 or older, or 12 and 15% in 2020. So that's the long-term reading. While the productive segment of the population would increase 11 points from 0 and 4, they would go from 25 to 12% in the same horizon or in the same time period. The aging population is something very positive, but there's a lot of challenges due to aging in a country. There's a proportion. We see the youth of our population and the trends of if they're active and productive. We need to sustain these groups of society that depend. So we measure the population and analyze who are productive and active. And you see the decline in the graph in the axis. And then there's 1,343,000 people. What were the main changes that we analyzed through the reform process? We established a multi-branch system that reformed the EPS system, but we introduced the rest of entities or institutions. We establish regimes that converge, and there's an increase in the age for retirement. So there's specific causes to reach retirement due to partial disability or disability. We calculate the basic wage for retirement and the rate to acquire rights. There's a solidarity scheme as well, and in our law, what's enshrined is the fact that we have a common system for all entities. It's multi-tier, multi-layer. We have the mandatory scheme or regime, and you see the nature. Then there's the distribution scheme and a mandatory payment scheme without prejudice. They can voluntarily pay, or there's the minimum pillars of protection. Then there's pillar zero that encompasses all the government programs that are mandatory or not. There's pillar one of solidarity. There's contributions, and then there's the distribution of it amongst the beneficiaries when they pay. And then there's also payments from the employer side. We analyze the cost, and there's other state authorities that administrate savings for the state. In pillar two, we have the individual mandatory payment scheme of each beneficiary. The amounts are accumulated in an individual account, and you see the profitability. I mean, it's all finance based on what's accrued. And the third pillar has been created with schemes which are voluntary in their nature, so we can increase the offer of benefits when people decide to save at an individual level. The Social Security Bank is branched out into three. There's the employers' payments, the personal individuals' payments, the taxes, and the finances from the state if there's need to allocate budget from government. So there's the 55%, 36% of payments, 9% due to financial assistance and taxes. With the new law, we have 5 provisional funds. These funds are listed. They have a specific budget or funds, and funds that are used for specific services. We only had a centralized fund, a collective fund where all the funds were centralized, but we needed to analyze the specifics of what was funded with those funds. In the horizon of the process of reform or amendment, we had to analyze the timeline. There's a horizon of 10 years. In the poll we see, or in the survey, we saw the application or implementation of both schemes. This period, it starts from January 2023 and December 43, and we're considering all the people that started paying since 23. For retirement, we apply a specific enforced scheme And we see what's the cost of retirement till December 1st, 1933. We have the common scheme that's applicable for all the people who are in the registry of those types of schemes by 2023, and those who are retired or capable of retiring till 2023. All these regimes or schemes lead us to acknowledge the beneficiary's rights, establishing this matrix or data that's the rule to provide the proper coverage. And we compare one scheme or another. We estimate the retirement percentage. We calculate if the person was a member of beneficiary. We analyze if they received all the benefits based on the new scheme or the past scheme. We analyze the theoretical data for each scheme. We measure the numbers and compare them with a previous scheme or the other. We analyze when all of this was caused by the regimes that are in force. So in 2033, we see the column of proportion of each scheme, that's 50%, and we analyze all years. So there's the new laws and regulations that give us these results per year. And you see the same scheme and the approval of the past scheme and the present scheme. Now, there's specific causes to retire. There's normal causes for retirement, anticipated retirement, total disability retirement, and there's specific causes. If there's normal retirement causes, we see the time frame and the calculated years of work correlated to the retirement age. In our law, we enshrine that it's 65 years for people to retire. The normal causes for retirement demand the beneficiary 30 years or more of service, but there's some that can retire when they're under 30. But you see the normal scheme and the analysis that started in 1973. And in this matrix of data, we've considered the analysis of everything that happened since 1977 for people that are part or listed in the Central Bank of Social Security. We compile data of the causes of retirement based on the present regime and the past regime, so they can have access to retirement after serving so many years. So the reform would imply that there's a loss of coverage or benefits if there's people that work for a short period of time. And this is something that we've analyzed at the financial institution for social benefits, and we've unbundled that data. The cost for retirement in anticipation is something that's analyzed in a time frame. There's people that have served as professionals for many, many years and have exercised during long periods of time activities that are highly demanding. These causes of anticipated retirement enables our people to retire at 60, and we can calculate the percentage of coverage in comparison with the different years in that matrix and the date of birth of the beneficiary. If there's people that have worked for over 40 years, we consider the calculation. For example, the birth year, it's like 73, 74, 75, it's 60%, 61 or 62 years of age to retire. Since 76, those who were born in 76, they have to reach 63 years of age and 38 years of service with payments or contributions, or 64 serving as professionals for less than 35 years. The anticipated cost to retire in demanding professions, we see this analysis. So due to age, there's special schemes or for specific professionals that don't have certain services, and these are the guides. Here we include the rural activities and building or construction workers. People who were born in 73 are part of this scheme. They have to be 60 and have served for 30 years. We've analyzed the people or the beneficiaries in this type of scheme at least we have to quantify what's happened with these beneficiaries in the past years, in 30 years or five. You see this SBJ, that's the basic income for retirement. So the SBJ analyzes the 20 years of service. So there might be a decline in the percentage of payment due to maternity leave. So we analyze the percentages. We can provide certain services for 2 years and benefit the kids for a specific term. For retirement, I mean, the person must have served for 20 years. Law was object of amendment. We have the retirement rate and the rights of the beneficiaries that varies depending on the age of the beneficiary. Delayed retirement might improve the percentage. So the rate of retirement is correlatable to the wage or the percentage of pension that they'll receive once they've worked for a lifetime. So you see the rates and the ratios that cannot go over 85% of the payment. Here, the basic coverage of those who are part of the scheme in which there's total disability is the following. A person that's disabled and retires, we have to calculate, okay, if the person was active until they met the requirements of years served and the retirement age. If the person doesn't reach the minimum age for retirement of 65, then the benefits are calculated when analyzing the 50 years of services. If we add to that formula the number of years and the percentages, those who are under or have worked less than 18 years and are currently disabled, there is a percentage that's 25 added if the person that's the post holder of the benefits meets the requirements. In our law, we have annex law or another chapter of law in which we see the lifespan. There's people that are 65 old or older. This chapter is enforced by the Central Social Security Bank. We analyze the return rates to generate the retirement pensions. It varies. It depends on the analysis of other incomes that the subjects or beneficiaries have. This chapter is applicable or enforced in all our areas in the system with a new regime. And we have this list of regimes that are well regulated thanks to the new General Scheme Act. Pardon. In our law, what's enshrined, it's an adaptation of parameters in the system. So, this is examined based on the variance of the lifespan. So the objective of this analysis happens in a direct form or indirect form because the beneficiary has rights. There's specific rates in that formula and we implement law. So in this formula, we compare the average or 5 years. We analyze or calculate what happened with the previous 5 years or the present 5 years. In the Social Security Bank here, as I've told you, the bank generated many forecasts with actuarial data or the stats. So we analyze hypothetical scenarios about the behavior of the variables that impact the system. In the hypothetical analysis, based on this analysis, there's assumptions. Since 2040, the GDP is there, so there's a decline of 28%. The decline in wage since 2025 and 2040 leads us to a number of 2.2% yearly from 2040 and 100. I mean, you see the percentages depending on age and cost is one of the variables or exogenous variables that are fundamental of this analysis is the death rate. In the forecast, we see specific parameters or metrics to compare what happened with those who retire due to old age or disability. All of these charts and calculations are dynamic in nature because they enable us to see the trends of future retirement so we can forecast the trends. And in addition, we analyze the gender and age of the people. Depending on the results or outputs of the forecast and analysis, we see the matrix with a number of retired members that started in 2023. And for example, by 2040, if we compare the number of services offered amidst the process of systematic reform, in contrast to the past scheme, there's a decline of 5%. In a long term, there is a decline of 10% that's equivalent to 70,000 retirees less. This means that there's 2 points used of our GDP there. in this matrix the level of payments or incomes, because we see the aging schemes because of retirement, old age, or disability. Here you see the deficits and the total amount. So it's 8 points of GDP that was used in 2025 and almost 11 points by 2100. When we analyze the trends and forecast amidst the reform, we see the decline of the payments, and there's 5 points of the GDP going from almost 11 points to 8.4% of the GDP. This is compared in the level of deficit that's analyzed in the graph. If we analyze the scenario amidst the reform, we see the growing trends in comparison with the previous scheme. If we achieve a decline with these graphs, we see that there is almost less than 2% of the GDP. Conclusions. Regarding the system, I could say that first, amidst the reform, we went through the process of amendment and all the institutions were aligned for the services that are offered. In our law, we constituted a regulator of the system. There's the national regulator of Social Security. They need to regulate, assess, and examine compliance of the entities involved who provide Social Security services. The regulator analyzes that they're in compliance with the principle of universality, sustainability, financial health, and others. This is analyzed or audited every 2 years. We analyze the demographic hypotheses, economic hypotheses, and the results are shared in general or disclosed years after years. The process of reform was part of a major project that's still ongoing because it's complex for us to analyze all the metrics. The impact has progress. We measured that since August 2023, and we'll continue analyzing it till 2043, and we'll compare the past regime and the present regime. Thank you very much for your full attention. Thank you very much, Dr. Lasso. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Lasso, thank you very much. I took note of your ideas of what you've mentioned throughout your presentation that caught our attention, like the accelerated demographic transition. That transition enabled us to analyze Uruguay as a case of reference in our region. Uruguay is analyzed as a country in acceleration and growth of its demographics. So also, what caught my attention was the increase of the age. It's incremental. So you annexed or have it there to see how the lifespan impacts and leads us to analyze the behavior. So this is all part of like an incubation process amidst the systematic reform. We know that there's impacts that are narrowed, and I congratulate you. It's very interesting. What you've said is highly interesting about Uruguay. And I wish you the best of luck in your forecast and trend analysis there. So thank you so much. We are celebrating the closure of this panel. Now we're going to listen to our Professor David Rasu. Thank you, Professor Lasso, as well. So the floor is open for. We want to welcome our economist. He has over 15 years of experience of investment in the labor market. Professor Rasu has worked in public and private sectors at a national, international level, and in the private sector, as I've said. For the past 3 years, he's the DG or General Director of a company called Banorte 21. Professor Rasu has joined this streaming to be specific about the general points and the conclusions and contributions that the examiners have ventilated in this conference. Now we're going to discuss what's happening in LATAM, which is a major challenge for all our economies, because as it's mentioned, and it's what we do is a challenge, and we're all going to have to face it. Thank you, Professor Rasu. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I was asked to be part of this panel, and I was asked to generate conclusions. It's extremely complex to create conclusions in such a short period of time, sharing such complex information that we've heard. It's so complex that I'll try to do the best I can, give you my best, and I'll thank each panel member to interrupt me if you think that I've skipped something or simply not expressed what my thoughts are. And I want to discuss the general conclusions with you. My initial comment is, and of course, well, I'll declare is the following, and I hope I have enough time to express myself clearly. In Latin America, we're facing many challenges which are very specific, not only due to the demographics or the citizenship. It all evolves. This all evolves. You know, our population grows in different economies, and the growth of our demographics changes country by country. Latam is not just analyzed as a block. There's paradigms, and with these paradigms, we've built these pension schemes. And we must remember that in Latam back in the 80s and 90s, in Latam, what Latam did in the 80s and 90s, it took ownership of the radicalization in many of our countries of the systems in which we include individual accounts as part of the process to sustain our economics or financing capacity. As a collective, we analyzed what happened with the individual accounts scheme, and we had a specific formula to calculate things in that time frame, in that past. And with those formulas, we thought that we'd solve the financial stability or sustainability due to the payment of the contributions of the employees, beneficiaries, and well, yeah, the workers and the government authorities. So we had to go through a process of transformation or transit and deal with the financial load of it all in that time frame, in that past time frame. And we built a sustainable model with objective numbers. But reality of is 30 years later is that what was done back then was not what we expected. So we had a pure system of schemes, and we tried to find a financial sustainability, but it didn't make it all feasible since that historic past. And so the pension schemes for the workers that have a low income had to go through a process. And in our countries, there are subjects that are regulated, subjects that are not regulated or did not contribute. And at least in many economies, half of the people are not contributing, so they're not paying. And all that workforce that's not regulated simply did not contribute, and they were not part of the list of benefits of the main schemes to retire. As a matter of conclusion, what we've discussed here and analyzed in this country and in others is that we're far away from the initial paradigm, which was a backbone in that past time frame. The thoughts have changed, or methods have changed. We are trying to make these pension schemes feasible, sustainable. We didn't abandon other non-contribution schemes, and we've analyzed this presentation after presentation. So we're trying to make all these pillars stronger. Pillar zero, that those were the four pillars that the past keynote speaker mentioned, who's Dr. Mariela. There's a scheme of contributions or no contributions that enable us to generate a benefit for all the elderly, for all the retirees. So I think that all the countries have evolved, and all the countries have gone through a systematic reform process in the past years to lead these efforts to sustain the payments or the with the schemes and the rates, after the analysis of pillar zero. This shows that what we're facing is a crucial challenge for sustainability. So we're debating, once again, lobbying in this present what was debated back in the 80s and 90s in correlation to the schemes and its sustainability. Because when we increase or strengthen the pension schemes or the schemes to contribute, we need to still guarantee sources of financing that enable the government or the state to have the right financial health to cover and protect and offer the governmental services which are necessary, that in any country are a must. I believe that we're analyzing creative solutions to try to find solutions for the system to be feasible, sustainable, and see the replacement rates and the sustainability metrics in the economic world of things. I think that there's specific measures that would lead us to find the proper mechanisms that allow us all to achieve this sustainability. As so we have to find solutions. Then there's other points that I want to talk about. I mean, if we can find or strengthen the segment of contributions or payments, if we can have more payments, our countries strengthen their systems and they're modernizing the effect. If we can have if we can have it all be sustainable and economically or financially healthy, then there's less margin or gaps that the government will have to subsidize to guarantee that people, the beneficiaries, do receive their pensions. Even if they in their professions they receive a low income or a wage. There's a lot of efforts that have been materialized in the analysis of the cases of our Uruguay and Mexico. So that's something that's part of the conclusions. We have to integrate the systems. Systems must converge. They're mixed schemes that are built with these four branches: the solidarity scheme, the non contribution scheme, the individual account scheme, and the other fourth scheme that was the voluntary scheme. I mean, it's the voluntary payment scheme. When we integrate all the full roadmap of our systems, that we will make it possible for us to find solutions. We're building that sustainability at this panel. And just as a comment, we know that all countries are different. And in all countries, there's different levels of expenditure of the GDP. At a regional scale, the expenditure on pensions is around about 7 points of the GDP, 7.5% of the GDP at a regional scale. This means, this means, this means that it's sustainable or not, depending on the contribution or revenue services. In the case of Mexico, the revenue is 18% of the GDP. If we analyze the regional average, then we only use 11 points or 11% of the GDP for the government to operate and allocate budget for the rest of the sectors. So that's a high number. So we have to transit to see the proportion or percentage of the expenditure of the GDP that's required. And it's very important to analyze this. And based on experience, what's happened in a what's happened in a few years, we have to analyze the independent and dependent variables of the formula of this equation. The independent variable or value leads us to obtain a result of sufficient pensions. That's something that no government's going to escape from. The independent variable of the formula is not just sustainability, financial sustainability. We need to pay or spend a specific amount in LATAM, and we've estimated or calculated that we'll spend a two extra of the GDP or 2% extra of the GDP. How much are we going to spend? How can we guarantee sufficiency? To guarantee sufficiency, there's ways. Number one, first, we need to integrate all the schemes or systems to analyze it holistically or totally to see the replacement rates. We need to analyze the full landscape, the global rate of replacement, because each worker will receive a percentage and there's specific rates. At least 60 or 70% should be paid in average, and we're under in the scheme of individual accounts. When we have to see what replaces what and analyze the coverage. If we see the payments or revenue and contributions, it's important for us to observe that there's investment models that were mentioned by Martha, and there's specific investment schemes that have their specificity, and these could be executed. Now, in that regard, I think that this correlates to an assessment. We need to assess the investment and the return. We have a lot of experience accrued, and we have to analyze the opportunities to invest. The pension funds, they could well be managed, and with these funds, we can go through a procurement and invest in low risk investments. And in Mexico, the work that's been done by the regulator of this country is cumbersome, but it's very positive. There's a lot of room for debate with these authorities and regulators, but there's specific thresholds or limits of asset investment, which are generating a profit. Not only investment in the country, but abroad. There's specific investment schemes that are very important, and there's measures in place. We know that new generations could invest in productive projects. If they're going to pay for investments for 15 or 20-year horizons, we know that there's investments that are low risk. If they're well structured, the profitability or return on investment is high. So when the time comes and these youth or workers reach retirement age and they get older, then the percentage of the margin that has to be paid by the government is lower. On the other hand, the payments are contributions, and the percentage of payment is relevant because those percentages, if they increase, that will enable us to generate a sustainable margin for this to be financially healthy. So the percentage of subsidy from the government could be less to guarantee that the pensions are paid and that the return rates are correct. Something else that's relevant is that some countries in a region have progressed a lot. They've grown in their capital market or investment market. In Mexico, we're still working on this because when the capital or equity markets continue developing, that there's other opportunities to invest with other instruments or investment instruments to guarantee profitability.
And replacement rates detaching from contribution systems. I do believe that in order to summarize the challenges before us vis-a-vis the population change are first to find what is the specific point of necessary expenditure. That is the first equation that we must solve in order to guarantee to the entire population of the elderly a decent pension, sufficient pension. This can be done based on the stratification that very clearly has been shown to us by Mariela, and with rules such as the ones Marta mentioned on reform in 2020 in Mexico was very important to this regard. It enabled us to enlarge coverage and replacement rates for all workers, and on the other hand, based upon that, strengthen the mixed vision of the systems. Inside that mixed system, we can increase investment capability and cost effectiveness of those funds or the yielding of those funds, pension funds. So I'll leave it up to here as the first attempt of my findings. Obviously, there are so many things that I have left out because we have limited time and my capability of synthesis in such an important presentation is quite low. So I thank you for your attention, and we are here to hear your comments. Thank you so much, Mr. Rasul. We thank the teamwork of the CIS for making possible this second day of high-level dialogues and give the support for the organization of this panel. I thank our panel members, Dr. Feriat, Mr. Khan, Marta Angélica León Alvarado, and Mariela Lasso, and David Rasu for their insights on the financial sustainability of the pension funds in Latin America. I want to thank also our audience that has joined us in this event. I hope that we can meet again in other events of the CIS, the Inter-American Conference on Social Security. I thank you all and we'll be waiting to meet you again. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Muchas gracias a todos los panelistas que nos
We want to thank all the panel members with us today. We have the Secretary General, Mr. Velasco, is already with us. Thank you so much to all of our attendees, to our members of the panel, Mr. Luis Martinez. Thank you for chairing the commission and the works of our panel today. Mr. Feyad André, Angélica León, Mariela Lazo, David Razú, Eduardo La Silva Pereira, I thank you dearly. It has been so enriching to hear you all. In the internet channel, we have the presentations available as well as in our YouTube channel. We hope that you can join in future events of this Inter-American Conference on Social Security. Thank you all. If you agree, we will be taking a picture. We kindly ask you to turn on your cameras. Thank you so much. Okay, we have the picture. We want to remind you that before our official closing, we will be symbolic signing of a collaboration with the Instituto Andino de Salud, and then we will be closing officially this session of the second dialogues on sustainable financial sustainability.
Gracias por acompañarnos, como lo anunciamos desde
Thank you for joining us. Since we have told you since the beginning of our session today, previous to the closing, we will be signing symbolically an MOU with the Andino Institute of Health. We are very pleased to host Álvaro Velázquez Larles will be talking us about this. Hi, good morning to all of you. It is for us a great honor to have this important moment marked by the signing of the framework between CIS and the Organismo Andino de Salud. It is an agreement that accounts a very important state in our efforts to strengthen our relationship and good practices on social security topics and health. That is one of the most important topics on social security in our region. I also want to take advantage to thank Doctora María del Carmen Calle from this organism for creating this convention, and Marisela Marquille, that is a deputy for that executive secretariat, and all those people that are working and collaborating at the Instituto Andino de Salud and have been really attentive in the creation of this agreement. And obviously also our staff and all the people that have been committed to this effort of the signing of this convention. We are really eager to start working jointly with Organismos Andino de Salud and their membership, seeking new effective solutions vis-a-vis the challenges that we face. The signature of this convention is a continuous effort to have bonds with Andina region, one of the five regions that we have at CIS. We can work together to face challenges that are common to all of us and that we are facing on social security and health. Essential that we remind ourselves that this conference promotes dialogue and collaborations among different institutions that are involved in social security in the Americas. So without further ado, I give the floor to María del Carmen Calle, doctor, that will be sharing her insights on this very important signing and how we will be promoting social security and health. You have the floor, madam. Hi, good afternoon. Mr. Álvaro Velázquez Hernández and the team of CIS that accompanies you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to join us and be signing this MOU with the CIS that started as a proposal and that we are concluding today. Madam Marielena Aguilar, Chair, has here to sign a cooperation agreement in order to develop a program to implement actions, activities, trainings, projects of common interest that will enable us to improve the health of our membership. We are signing today this MOU that will enable us, among other things, to strengthen the scope of social security in an Andine region and the rest of the American continent. The Organismo Andino de Salud has as a vision that by 2030, the inhabitants of Andina region will be having the benefits to health and have more equality, a better response vis-a-vis the challenges on social and environmental and health issues through cooperation vision that we hope to reach throughout the development of a strategic plan 2023-2030. Its lines are health as central axis of urban development, right to health with social justice, reduction of inequalities on health, integration and cooperation at a regional level, strengthening of institutional efforts, positioning health as an axle of human development. 52 years of continuous work with the 6 Andean countries, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and articulating with other articulation blocks in cooperation, seeking to strengthen health of the Andean population and the American continent. Undoubtedly, it will be strengthened throughout this partnership with the commitment of making a reality what has been included in this document in favor of the Andean and American populations. I just want to restate that we are stronger and that together we can go farther. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Madam, for your words. And once again, we want to express our thanks or enthusiasm. And yes, together we are stronger and we go farther. So we thank this signing of this agreement, and we hope that very soon we will see the fruits that will benefit detaching from it. Thank you, Madam. And we will be doing the symbolic signing so we can have a picture, and our communication team is taking photos of the screen. We thank all the members of the Executive Commission. We greet you all the way to Peru, Doctora Calle, that is in San Diego. Our greetings to all of you joining us today. Please go ahead. I cannot start my video because we have a bad internet connection, but I just want to mention that we are here. We'll check on that. Just hold on a minute, please. Okay. Hello. Greetings, Madam Maria del Carmen. Well, here we have the document signed, and thank you once again, Doctora or Madam. It's a pleasure to see you. Here we have the document, and we hope very soon to start working. Thank you. Thank you again. Good day. And thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, now we want to ask you to join our colleagues from the Organismo Andino de Salud for this closing. Secretary General will be addressing some words as a closing of this edition of the second high-level dialogue, The Future of Social Security. Thank you so much, Tere, once again. A pleasure to greet all of our attendees today following our broadcast and all of those that are attending at this room. We thank you for your attendance for this such a successful dialogues. This is our second high-level dialogues for the Inter-American conference for on social security, exchanges, experiences, insights on the future of social security in our region have been held. I want to start on behalf also Robledo Aburto and Director of the Social Security of Mexico. Thank you, all the attendees that have joined us during this week, highlighting the enthusiasm and efforts of all of those bodies that have participated in the panels. Your contribution has been great, and we thank you for it. We have explored a wide array of topics. I will enable myself to highlight some of those topics. The conference takes note the costarricenses caja unique as a single analysis of care on health of the population in Costa Rica, a good practice that can be exported to other countries. Service automation of services by Spirit Board of Anguilla that has been example for other social security system in our region in the Caribbean. The importance of mental health, a factor that we must consider to guarantee of secure and healthy working environment topic that we will keep on working on the risk prevention work working risks. And at CARICOM, one of the best experiences on multilateral agreements exist, and we will be attentive of the workshop that will be taking in Granada. We will be accompanying the pro tempore chairs to foster and promote social security agendas at the highest level at ECLAC in Honduras that has the pro tempore chair and the Mercosur groups and the Pacific Alliance. Talking about the persons with disabilities, we have the right of the human being to social security. We want to accompany the pilot program in the March in Canada to reinsert people with this that have been disabled to the labor market and the workers' rights the in Brazil of all those disabled people. Talking about the future of social security, we have to see the sustainability of the financial aspect, the panel that we just concluded that showed us the challenges and opportunities in the region in order to strengthen our efforts. Here, undoubtedly, each session has been a great opportunity to learn from one another, to share best practices, strengthen our bonds of collaboration. The message of this week is direct and simple. Social security accounts for one of the most efficient tools that we have available in order to fight poverty, discrimination, inequalities, and vulnerability. Accounts for a commission to guarantee the future of our societies. And that is why it is important to have a good investment and training for the people to have a good social security. Investment in time and resources is important to have exchange spaces such as this high level dialogue so we can move forward for a better future. Within this context, we announced that the third high-level dialogues will be taking place from 7 to 11 of October this year. We hope to count with your attendance and your engagement to move forward a much more inclusive and sustainable future of social security. We kindly ask you to keep yourselves updated on all our efforts to communicate with you because it's essential for our continuous effort to improve social security in our region. I thank you for the joint work that has been done, the coordination of the commission, the liaison division, legal advisor Tere, all of you that are attending here. I know that you have worked very hard the entire week, but we must all be very happy for the outcome. Thank you so much, and meet you again in the third high-level dialogues. Thank you for joining us. We want to thank all the colleagues from the Organismo Andino de Salud for joining us and all our friends that have been joining us during the week. We want to thank and the support from the technical department, from the Secretary General that has made possible this effort of broadcasting this event to you. Thank you so much.